Hey everyone, welcome to The Pen Habit. My name's Matt Armstrong. So I've been doing The Pen Habit now for just shy of about 3 years, about 2.5 years actually. And almost from the get-go, one of the complaints I got a lot of was, you do too many reviews of expensive pens, or I can never afford the pens you review. And it's true, I do try to review a lot of pens in a wide range. It turns out that I've done a whole bunch of reviews in the under $50 set, but not a lot lately. There's a couple reasons for that. One is, especially with super inexpensive pens, you don't really know what you're going to get. You don't know necessarily what the quality of the pen is going to be or if it will be consistent from one to the other. The brands don't have a lot of their own personality necessarily. The other issue that I run into a lot is that that's not why I personally got into the fountain pen hobby. I wanted a fine writing instrument, not just a writing instrument. You know, my dad always used to joke with me growing up that I have Cadillac tastes on a Corolla budget, and that's kind of true. I do like fancy things, and I always have. That being said, I know there are a lot of you out there who just can't afford a lot of the pens I buy. Frankly, there are times where I can't afford a lot of the pens I buy. I'm getting better about that, but even still, sometimes it's good to see what's out there in the more affordable range. And today's pen, you're not going to get more affordable. It's a little itty-bitty pen by Pilot. It is called the Pilot Petit1. I consider this as close to a disposable fountain pen as I will ever go. These pens are just $3.80 on Jet Pens, and they come in a whole variety of colors. I don't have all the colors, but there's, you know, blue, black, dark blue or purple, I can't really tell, pink, which I think is just perhaps the most heinous color of pen ever invented, yellow, and green, among others. They're small little pens, they're inexpensive, they're great pocket pens because they're very small, easily accessible, and surprisingly good writers. Now, would I ever buy one of these for myself? No. This is not a pen I would buy for a bunch of reasons, but I liked it a whole bunch more than I thought I was going to. So let me start off by saying a huge thank you to the Pen Habit viewer who sent me these, who wished to remain anonymous. She was very nice to do so, and these are going to be given away on penhabit.com in a coming giveaway, so just be on the lookout for that. So let's talk through the design of this pen. Like I said, it's a pocket pen. It's very small. The color comes mainly from the clip here on each pen, and then the body of the barrel. So the clip is made of plastic. It's very cheap, very flimsy, eminently breakable, I suspect, although I have not pushed it that hard. It's kind of, you know, standard torpedo-shaped pen. The cap itself says Japan on it, and that's really the only markings. And then the barrel says Petit1 Pilot, and then it kind of tapers down here to a rounded end. So it's a pretty straightforward design, nothing too special. One of the things that is interesting about this pen, though, is that even though it's so small, and it is very small, when posted, it becomes really a good-sized pen. So, like I mentioned, I'll pull the cap off here. It's a pop-top cap. It posts, and it clicks into place, so it posts securely. And all of a sudden, it's a full-size pen. And what's interesting is even the section is not tiny. You know, a lot of pocket pens, when they post it, they become writable, but the section is so small. I think of the Kaweco Lilliput, for instance. It's, you know, like a golf pencil. This is actually a good chunky section. It's almost 11 millimeters, and we'll get to that when we get to the full measurements. Under the cap, you've got a very inexpensive Pilot nib. It's got a breather hole stamped in, but they don't remove it, so I'm not sure what that's all about. It's got a clear plastic feed, so you can actually see the ink flowing through it. You can see the ink through here as well. Now, this does have big block threads. I have heard that this pen is eyedropper compatible. I will tell you my experiences have been less than stellar with doing this as an eyedropper. It leaked like crazy. I'm not a big fan of eyedroppering block threads. My suggestion is if you want to turn this into an eyedropper, yeah, just slather the silicone grease on those threads. It should be, because this block threads are not great for eyedroppering. They're just not very tight, generally speaking. And there aren't as many revolutions for the ink to get around to get out. So slather on the silicone grease if you want to eyedropper the pen. I know it can be done. I've heard that it can be done. I've just not had success doing it myself. And I'm not a big eyedropper fan anyway. As I mentioned, it does post, comfortable in the hand. It's long enough that it can be usable even for someone with pretty big hands. So I was surprised at how much I enjoyed writing with this pen. The other thing that was fascinating is I recorded this review once before, about 6 months ago. Lost the footage, or lost part of the footage. So I had half the review and not the other half, and I figured it's probably just easier for me to record the whole thing again, which I have done. I forgot that I had inked one of these pens and left it inked for 6 months. Came back, popped the top off, and it wrote immediately. So if you're the kind of person who does not use your fountain pens regularly, or if you want a pen that it's okay to leave for a long time without cleaning it out, I suspect this is going to be a good one. This one did a really good job of keeping the pen nib ready to go, even though it had been almost 6 months since the last time I'd used it. One other thing to point out about is, I said this is a cartridge pen. These are not standard Pilot cartridges. And I found the cartridges for these a little difficult to track down. They come in these little blister packs of 3 here, and the cartridges are $1.80 a piece. I mean, it's almost half the cost of the pen for 3 cartridges. So, just know that if you buy the pen, you probably want to make sure you buy the cartridges at the same time, because they're not huge cartridges, and they're not easy to find even online. A lot of companies, especially in the US, don't bring the Petit1 in, and they don't bring the cartridges in either. So you have to look around a little bit. Now, I said I bought the anonymous Pen Habit viewer sent the pens. I bought the cartridges at Jet Pens myself to use for testing purposes and for the giveaway. So I do know that you can get them here in the US, but in Japan, you'll probably have a lot easier time finding these. All right, so some quick comparisons. I'm not even going to bother with the comparisons to the high-end pens because these are less than $4. These are not, the comparisons are a little ludicrous. But you can see, got a little bit of hair from Luke the dog. You can see the size difference there. It really is a pocket pen. Here's the Pilot Metropolitan, which is not a huge pen in itself. This is clearly a smaller pen. The Esterbrook J, the Pelikan Stola 3. So true pocket pen. But in terms of measurements, you're looking at a 107.7 millimeters right here. Uncapped, it is 94.5 millimeters, and in my mind, just way too small to be used unposted. Fortunately, it does post to a very nice 132.3. The diameters, as I mentioned, both the section or the barrel and the cap are 13.4 millimeters at their widest point, and the section is 10.8, almost 11 millimeters. So very comfortable if you like a slightly larger grip. And as you might expect, very light, 7 grams uncapped, 10 grams capped or posted. Very light pen, and that is including the ink. So let's go ahead and do a little bit of writing for you. This is the Pilot Petit1. And we have a fine nib on this one. And I'm surprised at that. I would have assumed this is a Japanese medium, but it is a fine nib, and it's a steel nib. The ink is Pilot Blue. because it's the one that comes in the cartridge, and we are on a Rhodia dot pad. So here's the quote. Don't know why I put a period after his name. That's not an abbreviation. Okay, so I gotta say, I am shocked by this pen. I am shocked by it. I was expecting to loathe this thing to death, and visually I can't stand it. I think it's just atrocious. But that's okay. I'm not the target market for this pen. Where I was just thoroughly impressed was how it writes. It is just a perfect writer. You know, it is a steel nib, but it's pretty flimsy steel. So you can see a bit of line variation, but you'll also start seeing some weird artifacting. This is a nib that would be pretty easy to spring, I suspect. But it writes consistently. And keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, this is a pen that has been inked for 6 months, and it just writes perfectly. No skipping, no hard starting, no problems at all with this pen. I like this pen more than I like the Pilot Metropolitan, to be quite frank. The Pilot Metropolitan is meant to be a more permanent pen, but look at the difference in the size of the grip. I mean, this is just too narrow for me. This is really quite comfortable for me. I like this grip quite a bit, even though it's perfectly cylindrical and I generally like my grips a little ergonomic. This is much more comfortable for me to write with than the Metropolitan is. Now, the nib has been polished less than I would generally prefer, but it is perfectly ground. I mean, it's very smooth. The tines are perfectly in alignment. And I've checked a couple of these other pens, and it's the same thing. The nibs are just very good nibs. The feedback I'd probably put at a 6, maybe. It does feel a bit scratchy, or not scratchy, but it does feel a bit sandpapery to me. But I'm not sure if that's because it is such a fine point, or if it is due to something else, or due to the lack of polish, excuse me. So you can see it's not the wettest pen in the world. You know, it is a fine nib, as I have mentioned a couple times. But I'm going to pull up the Montegrappa Copper Mule, which I did in the previous review, or in a previous review, and show you the line by comparison. So this is a medium in a Montegrappa's medium. This is a fine in Pilot's, in this Pilot Petit1. This is actually, I think, probably the widest fine I've ever seen from a Pilot nib. So I'm going to say that you might want to consider these to be more like the European version of the nib gauge than the Western version. I don't even know if they come in other sizes. I'm pretty sure all of the ones I have are fines. So it may be that this is the only size it comes in. But it is, if you're used to Japanese fines, this is going to be wider than that. In terms of reverse writing, quite a nice writer. Smooth, a little bit of feedback. Not as fine as you might hope for, especially on the downstrokes. The crossstrokes seem to be pretty fine. For the most part, though, I gotta say, I've just been really thoroughly impressed by this little $4 pen. So, yeah, I don't care for disposable pens that much. This is a little too candy-colored and juvenile for what I'm looking for, but I cannot argue with the way it writes. I can't. I wanted to be able to, because these little pocket pens just don't do it for me, but it is just a phenomenal writer. So thank you to the Pen Habit viewer who sent these in. I've got 6 of them. I'll be doing giveaways in batches of 3, and there'll be some other little special things that I'll include. You'll also get ink cartridges from for your 3 Pilot Petit1s. So head over to penhabit.com to see the photos, read the written review, and it'll usually be a day or 2 after this video, but I've got another giveaway going on at the same time, so it might be basically it may be a week or 2 after. If you don't follow me on social media, on Facebook or Twitter, on Google+, you might want to do that, just because that's the best way to find out what giveaways I've got going on at any one particular time. Or if you want to do me a solid, you can head over to the Pen Habit and click on one of the sponsor banners and see what giveaways we've got going on there. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you again for the pens. We will see you here next time on the Pen Habit. Bye.